Hey friend, Henry Flowers here, Powerful Living Outreach Ministries. I got something to say today, so let's get it started. I saw an interview, some women interviewing the great John McEnroe. Great tennis pro. It was just a weird interview. It got weird really fast. I'm gonna talk about that. And I'm still talking about this idea about self-esteem and how your self-esteem can affect your ability to live powerfully. Listen, powerful living is powerful loving, okay? The two are inseparable, and you cannot begin to love others until you begin to love yourselves. And I mean, that's what Jesus said. There's all of us who claim to be Christians, we say we believe in Jesus. It's just sometimes some of the stuff he say, we don't be really grabbing a hold of it, but we're gonna jump into that again today. So, hit me up if you got questions, comments, or show ideas. Listen, you can contact us, powerfulliving2022@gmail.com. You can call us or text us. Area code is 513-404-7793. I think that's the number. I think I did it right. I put it in the description box if it's not right. Right? You can text us and call us with your ideas or show topics, comments, praise reports. Listen, all of that stuff. I'm here for it. Powerful Living is where you find podcasts. Just look up Powerful Living or just put Powerful Living Henry Flowers wherever you find a podcast. We'll be putting these out every week. And then, so if you're in the Cincinnati area and you want to come and join us live, we are at 5616 Wolf Pen Pleasant Hill Road out here in Milford, right off of 275, just a block away from Milford High School. We're going to be in the upper room at General Dentistry every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You want to be here because once the podcast is over, we kind of get together and talk about what we talked about in the podcast, and we work through some of these distinctions, like really do the work. Because here's the deal. Listen, there's a whole lot of folks that believe in Jesus Christ that's having a good time on Sunday. They're having powerful Sunday services and hearing powerful sermons, but sometimes the powerful life just never shows up. That's what we're trying to do right here at Powerful Living Outreach Ministries. I'm trying to help power show up in people's lives and just make that transition from what you heard on Sunday. How do you actually make it show up and make a difference in your life? I'm telling you that my life transformed when I learned how to love myself, and then I began to learn how to love people in a powerful way. The two are inseparable. And many times our relationships are going downhill or not at all existing, right? We lose power in relationships. Man, we lose power with money. We lose power in not knowing how to deal with adversity and difficult people. There's so many ways we lose power. Man, we get stuck in the past, man. And even though Christ says we are a new creature in Christ Jesus, we still just get stuck because we don't know how to get unstuck, because a lot of times we don't discover these things for ourselves. We sit there on Sunday and we have somebody tell us what, quote unquote, thus saith the Lord, right? And then we go home and we don't know how to put these things into action, and we don't know how to discover and uncover these distinctions for ourselves. There's a whole level of power that shows up when you discover something for yourself, as opposed to you being just told something. So all of these things are in place and happening here at Powerful Living Outreach Ministries. I want to see you guys there because, listen, it's about helping you go from ordinary to extraordinary living. So here we go. I'm jumping right in. So this interview, John McEnroe, and I don't remember if you were to Google John McEnroe on Serena Williams. So here's John McEnroe. He's being interviewed. There's a panel of ladies and one old white guy, and the lady immediately comes on, and the first thing that stands out to me is she says, "Are you ready to apologize?" Right? So she folds up her arm and crosses her leg, and you can just see the venom just coming off of this lady. Are you ready to apologize? And McEnroe says, "Well, apologize for what?" He says, "I don't think I need to apologize for anything." And then the other lady came, I forget, it's a really interesting video because some interesting things happened when the video was cut. There was a cut on there, and then it came back, and he says, blah, 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 blah. Is that what you guys want to hear? So it sounded like somebody kind of cut the video and then told him what for, and this is what we need you to say in order for the thing. And then he came back and said it. But anyway, I ain't getting into all that. Here was the big deal. They asked his thoughts about Serena Williams, and he said she is undoubtedly the greatest female tennis player of all time. And he went on to say something else, and before he could finish, he was interrupted, and the lady said, well, why would you say female? Why would you just not say she's one of the greatest tennis players of all time? And he says, well, because she plays against women. Now, for me, it just clicked for me, I guess, that didn't need to be said. But then when he said it, it clicked again. I was like, okay, yeah, like, duh. She plays against women. So I think there was nothing wrong with saying that, but they obviously had a problem. So here we go. So the other lady chimes in, and this is really what got my attention, because she says, well, I just think that when you say she's one of the greatest female tennis players of all time, or she says, I think it diminishes the accomplishments of women in tennis. Let me see, I want to make sure I got this right because I wrote it down. Yeah, oh yeah, are you ready to apologize? It diminishes the accomplishments of Serena. So, this whole mindset is really standing out to me today, that he said Serena Williams is the greatest female tennis player ever, and then when they asked him, why did you say that? He says, well, because she plays against women. Well, what do you think she would do if she played against men? Okay, well, first of all, they only play against men if we're playing mixed doubles, okay? If you've ever watched a mixed doubles tennis match, okay, there is a huge difference between when the men serve and when the ladies serve. The match changes, okay? In a huge way, the match changes. The speed of the game, the power that's delivered. Just look up mixed doubles. Just to give you an example, I am an average tennis player. I'm a men's 4-0 level. That's average male is 4-0, okay? I have championships, like undefeated in mixed doubles. And I'm just an average player, and I'm 49 years old. I'm not as fast as I used to be, definitely not as athletic as I used to be. But just when you're playing mixed doubles, there's one rule that you really follow if you want to win. You target the female. And it doesn't mean that she's less of a person. Listen, we're trying to exploit weaknesses here. Now, sometimes it can be that the male is less skilled, and so you'll see that as the course of the match goes on. And many times women, the hand-eye coordination, the fundamentals, they have those advantages over men, because men tend to be more athletic. We strengthen, we try to overpower stuff, and we just make up stuff because athleticism will get us over the hump if we don't get the fundamentals right. And so, listen, I'm just saying, mixed doubles is the only place in tennis where men play against women, okay? And I'm just telling you, it's a different game than men's doubles or women's doubles. It's just different because of the gender dynamics show up really starkly. And so here we go. So I told you I have championships in mixed doubles. So you can just look up men's and women's mixed doubles, and you can just see some of the footage, and you just see how things change when the men serve as opposed to when the women serve and the man is returning the woman's serve. Okay, all that aside, I want to deal with this lady's response. This whole idea that when she says, well, the things that you say about Serena, it feels like it diminishes her accomplishments. Okay, now, this is some low self-esteem stuff right here. Just in my opinion, this is some low self-esteem stuff. Okay, so first of all, what did he say? Let's take the words that he actually used. Because in the English language, we actually have words, and words mean something. And so what did he actually say? He actually said Serena is the greatest female tennis player of all time. And then he eventually, as the interview continued, he said, listen, she's one of the greatest competitors in all of sport. She dominated her contemporaries more than anybody else. Those were his opinions, right? And so he went and said that. But why did this lady, when she heard him say Serena Williams is the greatest female tennis player of all time. Why did she hear something else? Because if somebody told me that I was the greatest anything of all time, I would be flattered, right, that they have that opinion on me. But the bottom line is, for me, is why did she hear something that he didn't say? He didn't say anything other than something reverential about Serena Williams. But this lady comes in and says, it feels like what you said is diminishing Serena. Okay, but he never actually said that. Let me tell you why people do that. This is low self-esteem stuff. So many times it can be true that people, when you say something and they quickly take offense to it, most of the time it's because they heard something that you did not say. Self-victimized. Yes. And so a lot of times in relationships, what I've learned to do is I don't necessarily feel the need to respond to the question that they asked me. I feel the freedom to ask another question. So if they say, well, why did you do this? This hurt my feelings. The question is, I don't feel the need to jump into an apology and just fall for that debate, because people love for you to apologize. Because people always are trying to be right and they trying to look good. And then the other two just do trying not to look bad, and we trying not to be wrong. And so automatically when somebody gets offended, they want you to apologize, and they get you to the point where you're feeling wrong. And if I feel like I need to apologize, I'll apologize if I feel like I did something wrong. But I'm not going to apologize because what I said occurred to you differently based on what you've been through and who said it to you before and how you was treated and how your daddy did you 17 years ago and how your mama didn't treat you when you was a baby. See, all this stuff causes us to get stuck in our past, and it causes you to have low self-esteem to the point where people can say something and you hearing something that they did not say. And there you go, in a conflict. When you say that you want peace in your life, especially believers, man, we the ones always talking about, Jesus said the peace that I give to you is not like the peace that the world gives to you. I want peace like a river. I want to be planted like a tree that's planted by the water. But every opportunity that we have to get offended and lose our peace, we jump on it like a chicken on a June bug. That's some low self-esteem stuff, man. And all I'm saying is it's ordinary to be super offended as fast as you can. That's ordinary. But Jesus says, listen, I've come that you have. What kind of life did he say in John chapter 10? He says, I come that you have a rich and satisfying life. That's talking about peace, confidence, self-esteem, know your value, and that you have vision and provision for your life. And that you have powerful relationships, you feel loved, you are loved, and all these kinds of things are happening in your life because you create it. But here we go, just like the sister who's offended at something he did not say. A lot of times we create the exact opposite of what we say we want as believers. So, I love this. This is Ephesians chapter 5. Now, this is Paul the Apostle talking, and in this passage, Paul is giving, and this is really good too, I love this whole passage where Paul is giving instruction on husbands. This is how you love your wife the way Christ loved the church. This is what love looks like. This is what love does. This is how love shows up in a relationship. And this is so good that he's saying this. And I want to focus really quickly on chapter 5 of Ephesians. I'll read the New Living Translation. I want to focus on verse 29. Okay? Now, he says here in verse 29, no one hates his own body, but feeds and cares for it. Now, if you remember the last podcast where I talked about self-esteem and I talked about loving others as you love yourself, right? There's an application that says you can't love others until you love yourself. You can't be whole in a relationship until you are whole. Nobody comes into a relationship expecting to be made whole and then shows up as a powerful person in that relationship. You sitting like this, what you gonna do for me today? Man, that is a disaster waiting to happen. You want to get married or be in a relationship so somebody can make you happy or that somebody can complete you. Brother, sister, if you are broken, being in a relationship with a complete person, it's going to be one complete person and one broken person. You are not going to be made whole by being in a relationship with a person who is whole. You got to be willing to do the work. And this is what the work looks like. Paul says, listen, nobody ever hates his own flesh, but what does he do? He feeds it and nourishes it. Low self-esteem people are not doing the work. Somebody who's easily offended, and you're constantly causing conflict and just all these arguments and things. Let's just deal with personal relationships, because that's what Paul is talking about right here. Just in your personal relationships, you constantly creating it and complaining that you have it. And here's what the complaints sound like. Well, you don't never fill in the blank. Well, my husband always, my wife keep on. You see the thing? The theme is always somebody else is doing something that makes me fill in the blank. You see how you get to have responsibility for what shows up in your life given to other people? That's an excellent way to lose power and to not have the kind of life that Jesus talked about having. Right? And so here, the alternative is that to not hate your own self means that you feed yourself and you nourish yourself. You've got to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work. Listen, I understand that what happened to you when you was a kid was terrible. And it was hurtful. But here's what else is true. You grown now. You are seriously grown. 40 years ago that happened, and it made you mad. What your mama did to you was wrong, and it was hurtful, and it traumatized you. Yes. Now, what do you want? That's what he's asking you. What do you want? Do you want to stay stuck in the past? Okay, stay right there. Keep up my boss don't never. Every time somebody cut me off in the road, I can't stay, I gotta, and all these things that create in your life, the things that you say you don't want, and it's always impacted by other people. We actually do get to choose things. When I get angry, yes, there can be a stimulus happening. There can be an event that happened could give me an opportunity to get angry. But trust me, every time I get angry, it's a choice that I make. I'm about to get angry. I'm about to blow up. I'm about to start yelling, or I'm about to start punching, or I'm about to start driving fast, or whatever you do to respond to anger. It's a choice that you make. So doing the work says, listen, nobody is the boss of me. Nobody gets to control my emotions. Nobody gets to push my buttons, as they say. But we always do it. We always let people do it. Oh, we let people push our buttons so much. And sitting there having a good conversation with your partner, and because they say something that you don't agree with, you get offended. Well, I feel like what you said made me feel like I ain't enough. Yeah, but I actually just said... But the words that I used, though, was only, the rice was a little crunchy. Right, okay. Those are actually the words that I used. Was, baby, the rice, you like the rice? You asked me, did I like the rice? This is called doing a recap, okay? This is really good. We're going to work on this later on. Okay, so before you get angry, how about it's trying to keep your peace. It's about nourishing yourself, feeding your flesh, right? Doing the work that it takes to be a better person. Powerful living is powerful loving, and you can't separate the two. So in order for you to learn how to love people, you got to first love yourself. That's what Paul is saying. People don't hate themselves, they nourish themselves. So this is what it looks like. You give yourself an opportunity to be peace. To be a peaceful person. The Bible says, he who will have friends must first show himself friendly. So here you go. Here's an opportunity. If I want to be somebody that creates peace instead of anger and hostility, so I'll do a recap. Okay, what just happened? What actually is causing my chest to get all tight, and my heart rate is up, and I'm all clenching my jaw now, and I'm about to say something that's gonna hurt somebody, hurt my spouse, and you know you're about to do it. You know when you're about to do it. You're thinking about it. So instead of that, how about this? Okay, let's do a recap. What just happened? You asked me if I like the rice. Okay. Did you really want me to tell the truth about that? Or did you want me to say yes, what you wanted to hear no matter what? Okay, that's a whole nother subject, right? So I said the rice was a little crunchy. That's what I said. Yes, I like the rice, it was a little crunchy. Now, you got mad, slammed the table, and walked away from the table. You always gotta complain about what I cook. You don't never. Why are you so angry? Okay, but he actually did not say that. The rice is crunchy. Now, you get to ask yourself, here comes the powerful part. Here's where you show up. Here's where you feed yourself. This is where you nourish and take care of yourself. That inner person on the inside of you that's angry because of something that happened in the past, right? That whatever it is that causes you to be this person who responds that way to just normal words. The rice is crunchy. Here's where you get to ask yourself, okay, why did I make those words mean? He don't like me. He don't like my cooking. He thinks I'm a bad cook.
Because that's the same words your parents respond to you as a kid.
Did you just hear that? I hope you just heard that. Stimuli that come from where? The past. Way back in the day, somebody made you wrong as a child, said something that hurt you, and so now you stuck.
Because you couldn't voice your opinion at that moment.
Somebody took away your power.
No.
And didn't let you voice your opinion, and now you feel unheard, stifled, and ain't nobody ever gonna stifle me again. I'm gonna say what I got. See, now it's an over response to stuff that happened in the past. And you wonder why you don't have peace. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not doing the work. See, it takes work to be able to sit down and say to yourself, okay, he actually didn't say he hates my cooking. He said the rice was a little crunchy. And he only said that because I asked him. Why did I get angry? You can have that conversation right now. The next question is, it's called doing a recap. You just do a recap of what actually happened. Is just trying to take the emotion out of it and just go through the thing line by line and say what actually happened. Okay. So what actually happened is I got angry because I made his words mean I'm not a good cook. Okay, but did he actually say that? No. Okay, now, so if he actually didn't say that, it's possible he don't really mean that. I made it mean something. So what do I want? Do I actually want to be a person of peace? If the answer to that is no, then I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. Because I got a fantastic way of ruining the peace every time because I add meaning to what people say. He said Serena was this. Well, I feel like you diminishing Serena's work. No, that ain't really what he said, though. He said if Serena were to play men, she'd probably be in the top 700 if she were to play against the men. Well, I feel like you diminishing her greatness. No, I'm saying who she was playing against women, but I know the difference between men and women. You add meaning to stuff that people say. Why? Because there's something on the inside of you that's stuck in the past. When somebody took away your power and you felt unheard and stifled and stomped down and bullied.
Well, Caucasian women have this complexity where they think they have to defend all black women because government society has talked about black women so bad. So they feel like they're the saviors of black women.
Did you hear that? Oh, the savior complex.
I call that
Lord knows.
Complexity.
Yeah. You feel like you got to come to somebody's rescue. Oh, Lord, man, let me tell you. You ain't had no. You think somebody will feel like they got to defend women when it comes to Serena? Feel like she got to defend Serena because of something John McEnroe said. He was just giving his opinion. Don't he get to have an opinion that says he thinks she would be top 700 if she was playing against men in her prime? Don't he get to have that opinion?
Not attacking the feminist agenda.
Not if you're attacking the feminist agenda. Whoa. And so here she comes. She feel like you got to defend her. Man, you want somebody to come for you? Say something about Serena, they'll come for you. Mess around and say something about Beyonce.
You can be black talking about Serena and they still come for you.
No doubt. But mess around and say something about Beyonce.
Oh man.
And what, the Beehive? Ooh, the Beehive? What? They will come for you. So it's like this whole thing. Yeah, you become a cult follower, and you actually lose your peace. You are on social media responding to what people saying, and you are angry, and your jaw's tight, and you driving home angry, and you driving angry, and then you get home to your spouse and they say, hey baby, what you mean by that?
But it starts before the peace. You have to have the integrity before the peace.
Yeah.
So you're forgetting the layer.
Yeah.
Integrity. Because the integrity is what instills security. Then what gives peace.
You hearing what we're saying today? I hope you're hearing me. So there's a possibility for all of us to just take a look at our behavior and how we respond to something simply that somebody said, and we just get the opportunity to ask ourselves, why did I just get angry? It's called doing a recap.
Assumptions.
Making assumptions about what they think about you. You see, and usually it means
what you think about yourself.
What you think about yourself. That's called projecting. And I had a powerful conversation with a good friend talking about a relationship, and when we boiled it all down, because I kept asking the questions, I kept digging, kept doing a recap, and then boiled it all down to, I don't feel like I'm good enough for you, was the basis. Listen, that's so powerful for somebody to be able to do the work, because we're talking about doing the work, we're talking about loving yourself, shining yourself, washing yourself, making yourself look good, right? This is stuff that you do on the inside when it comes to your self-esteem, learning who you are in Christ. This is how you make yourself look better. When Paul is saying nobody ever hates themselves, but they take care of themselves. This is what it looks like. Paul is saying you doing the work on your own self-esteem. Because if God says that you are one thing, but your actions say that you believe something else, there's a discrepancy there, and you're never going to get the life that God says that you can have when you're doing things your way. You're being ordinary. Anybody can get upset at any and everything and cause angst and anger and all kind of strife in your relationships. But you're constantly saying you want a good relationship. But you're not saying to yourself what God says about you. That's called doing the work. And so here you are. You get the opportunity to just do the work, to be a better person, to show up powerfully in your relationship, and stop hating yourself based on what somebody said about you in the past. You think you're not good enough in this relationship. Why? Because of the stuff that somebody did in the past. You never had a voice. This person did that to you. This person did that. They hurt you. They raped you. You were kidnapped. You were abused. All those kind of things happened in the past. And those things keep you in shackles, even to this day, that you don't have the things that you want in life. You don't believe that you can accomplish something. Why? Because somebody said something about you in the past, and you're holding on to that thing as truth. They are telling you who you are. But those who want to move from ordinary to extraordinary, they say, you know what? This is who I am. This is who God says I am. This is what I can have in my life if I create it. If I become, listen to this. If I become cause in the matters of my life, if I become the one who creates the things that show up in my life, as opposed to, I can never, and you always, right? Shucking your responsibility onto somebody else as if somebody else is a creator in your life. And they can be. Oh, yes, they can. The other people can be the creator in your life because you give them that power. And that thing that happened in your past, you give that thing the power. Because you're constantly focused on it and you're staying there. And there's no wonder you feel like you're not good enough for this relationship. You know why? Because you believe in your head that you are still the person back in the day who was told that they weren't good enough, or who was shown that they weren't good enough, or who was treated like they weren't good enough. And now you're 40 years old, and it's really, you may not actually be 40 years old. So check this out. This is human psychology here, right? Sometimes people are 40 years old, but sometimes people are 10 years old 4 times in a row. You stuck. You're 40 years old, but as 10 years passed, you didn't get 10 years of improvement, of self-work, of being a better person. No, you stuck.
Jeanette Baker.
So now you're 20, but you're really 10 in your mind. You easily offended because you believe that what happened to you at 10 years old that made you wrong, made you not good enough, that is still who you are because you haven't done the work to declare what God says about you. And I really mean that, like declaring, like I stand in front of the mirror and I say to myself in the mirror what God says about me. And I say it out loud because I believe my voice more than anybody else's. And I do the work and lay the foundation to create somebody else as opposed to who I was in the past. This is what powerful living looks like. This is what it looks like when Paul says, nobody hates his flesh. So he's basically saying, look, stop hating your own flesh. Right? Nurture yourself. And you can't even, this is so beautiful that Paul is talking about a husband loving a wife, as Christ loved the church, and wives do this for their husband and that kind of stuff. Man, you can't even be functional and powerful in a relationship if you are not doing the work to feed and care for yourself. You are literally a sandbag, an anchor in that relationship, causing that relationship to go nowhere. Both people, and I am a true witness to this. It absolutely takes two people to keep a marriage together. But check this out. One person can tear it apart. One person who's stuck and doesn't think they're good enough, and they start projecting onto you, and everything you say, they take offense because why? There's this programming on the inside of him that says, he doesn't love me, so everything that he says, or every time he gets a little upset, it just means he doesn't love me. That's what that ends up means. If you trace it all the way down, the reasons, the statement, and he did this, and he did that, well, what does that mean? And it means this, and what does that mean? That means this. If you boil it all down, it usually means he doesn't love me. And that's a theme that you believe about yourself based on something that happened way back in the day. And so there's an opportunity for you to go from ordinary to extraordinary and just be able to create who you are all over again. It's about knowing who you are and knowing the talents and skills that you have, that you bring to the table, and saying to yourself what God says about you and doing what Paul says. He says, listen, feed yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't hate yourself. Do the work that it takes to become a powerful person. You'll see your life transform. You'll see your career transform. You'll see your relationships transform. I am a living witness. I am standing here today in front of this audience, in front of this microphone, in front of this camera, because I have created a new person in Christ Jesus. I literally recreated who I am and who I was because I didn't like the life that I had before. I didn't like it. I wasn't getting out of life what I wanted. See? Oh, man. I'll finish with this quote. I love Dave Chappelle. If you have not, listen, if you don't know Dave Chappelle, you just got to listen to some of Dave Chappelle comedy, man. The dude is just a genius. He's one of the greatest comedians of all time. And he was on one of his shows and he was talking about his early days and how he got started. And he said this. He says, I was 17 in New York City and doing comedy when people began to say they discovered me. That's like saying I discovered sunshine. I was already shining on everybody. Is that brilliant or is that brilliant? See, this is a guy who at that time began to do the work to believe in himself. That's how come he was able to stand on stage. Man, listen, if you're able to get out in front of people and stand on stage and do comedy, brother, let me tell you something. I have been on a stage. You putting yourself out there. And that takes a certain level of confidence, takes a certain level of knowing who you are. And you don't get to that point where you begin to show the world your talents and skills and your gifts until you do the work on yourself. You got to begin to do the work. Study your script. Practice your craft. Get in the front of the mirror and say to yourself what God says about you. And you will watch your life transform. I'm telling you what I know. Now, here's a good example. I'm going to close. And I just want to show you this. Right at the beginning of this chapter, I love this. When Paul is talking about husbands loving their wives and how they can begin to love each other. And it says, taking care of yourself and practice. Listen, go right back up to the beginning. This is so powerful. Right in the beginning of this chapter, verse 1, it says, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Imitate God. What did God do? God said something about you. God said this. He said this, and there was light. He said, let this happen, right? Now, if you believe that you are God's dear children, what does that word dear mean? Loved, cared for, special. God says that you are the apple of my eye. I've carved you in the palm of my hand. The scriptures say these things, and it tells you what God thinks about you. Paul just said you are one of his dear children. That's why you should love yourself and take care of yourself. And that's the key to going from ordinary to extraordinary. It's available to you, my friend. Let's do it together. Henry Flowers, Powerful Living Outreach Ministry. I ain't going nowhere. I'm coming back.